Right. Hey guys, I hope you're doing awesome. Welcome on this new video. Today I want to talk about sales. I want to talk about business model, I want to talk about transactions, and I want to talk about how I believe that this year will hit $500,000 in sales. Not in revenue, but in sales. The first piece of advice that I would have for you would be to consider what makes your ideal customer. I have been wasting a lot of time in the recent couple of months figuring out who was my ideal customer. And what I mean by this is, who is the person that will be most likely the most interested by what you have to propose, whether it's a service or a product, how you propose this service or product, how you interact with them. As an example, I'm selling horses, okay, competition horses. I know that I'm in the segment of show jumping, so obviously I'm going to talk to people who are involved in show jumping. They are expensive horses, so I've got to talk to competitors, most probably professional or amateurs. But then within that segment, there's so many different types of people. There's the old people that, you know, have had horses all their life, not necessarily so technology driven. You might have young people who use their phone and social media to interact with one another. So what's my ideal customer? Obviously, as Bridal is an app, I had to figure out that, you know, it was very much driven by people who understood the dynamics of technology, or at least had a little of understanding of it. So people that use Instagram, people that use Facebook, all of that. And we're still trying to figure out where the traffic can come from and how we can increase it from an organic perspective. But I try to define knowing certain things, knowing perhaps that my ideal customer might be, you know, mobile user, active mobile user, that they might be below 30, that they might be training with a trainer, that they might have this specific budget, this, that, the other, a specific customer type. Once you know your ideal customer type, like I took a while to figure it out, and now that I've got it figured out, I'm trying to figure out how I can get to them easily. It's very important for you to make sure that you have the right product to showcase them. In my case, it's very hard because it's not because I've got 400 or 500 horses to sell that we will necessarily have the ideal horse for that specific client. So the dynamic is so complex because you need the right client, but you also need the right horse to fit them. It's very similar to transactions that could be like related to real estate or to the art market. But at the same time, people that buy a piece of art will not need to try it or run a medical examination on that specific piece of art to make sure it's healthy. In horses, it's very hard to sell because there's so many things that come against you as a seller. First up, it's very hard to find what you're looking for. Second, there might be very strong, heavy needs in terms of making sure that this horse is healthy, it passes the veterinary examinations, that his x-rays fit. But at the same time, all of these factors correspond to what the client's risk level, like what risk level they can take, because sometimes you might have a client with a big budget that's willing to take a risk on the horse because they really like it and they are thinking, okay, it might not have the perfect veterinary examination, I'll buy it. And then you might have the same horse, same, you know, report, and a client that has less money that might think, oh, I won't put that as much risk into buying this horse. It's very much opinion based. There is definitely a pattern, we're trying to figure it out, but it's not easy. So these different challenges that come against the sale are the reasons to why someone will purchase or not. Sometimes we've had cases where everything was perfect about the horse. The budget worked, you know, they loved it, they tried it, it was perfect. And then they vetted the horse and then they were like, okay, I'm not buying it. Simply because the horse might have one or two remarks that didn't fit what they wanted. And it's very hard because there is no perfect horses on the market with no medical history that's, you know, showcasing an injury or a little break or whatever. And there's nothing that is easy in that business. So that's why it's very, 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 very challenging to build a strong sales pipeline and really, really, really work it out. And the sales process take a long time. So how is this learning interesting for you? You might be thinking, I'm not selling horses. Okay, but at the same time, you might have challenges and barriers that you are facing to sell to your customer. So figuring out what is the problems that your customers are facing, how you can solve these problems, but also what are the barriers to the sell. In order to kind of get to a better idea of what I had to do, I mapped it out. I was thinking, okay, so first the customer might be coming to me saying, oh, I have an interest in this specific horse. Or they might come to me saying, hey, I'm looking for a horse with these criteria. So upon that, I kind of mapped out the journey that they were going through. I'm not going to, go through the entire journey of selling horses because that's probably not applicable to you at all. But basically, if you map out the customer journey, it will get you to a stage of understanding clearly what your customer is thinking. And you might be wrong in your first buyer journey, but at the same time, if you do have an outline somewhere that you keep notes on and that you adapt around what you're working on, that could be super useful. The way in which I did it, I really pretty much put it in my CRM, and every single deal that I go through, I kind of align the stage in which my customer's at in terms of like deal process with the stage that corresponds to my buyer journey. That way, if I'm losing a deal, if I'm seeing that something's going bad, I'm trying to think, okay, what can I do to make sure that they come back on track with me, or what can I do to save this deal from closing and from them perhaps buying horse from somebody else or whatever. It's very tricky, we're figuring it out, it's not easy at all, and also we have a way of selling that's very different than many people in the market. So it's very, very challenging. Obviously, as you learn from the process, you'll face many challenges. So the best idea here could be for you to really, 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 really keep track of your deals and figure out what goes wrong and what goes right. That way you'll eventually get to, an outline of what makes the perfect deal go through. And from that, you can learn a lot. Like, I think that sales is very much related to understanding people's emotions and people's reactions to situations, and really, really finding the trigger to drive them to buy from you and from nobody else. One very big part of the business, whether it's the sale of horses or more generally other things, a sale will not happen without trust. So there's so much work that needs to be put in generating trust with your customers and creating that interest from the market, that interest from people thinking, oh, this person really seems reliable, I'm gonna go buy from them. It's like so key, and it's even more important in a market like equestrian sports, where there's been a tremendous amount of fraud, a tremendous amount of issues with like money laundering, fake x-rays, issues with the veterinary examination, fake performance results. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that people have done in the past to get sales across that kind of, push people away from really, really, really buying horses. So it's very important to have a very strong understanding of how you can generate trust. I think that a lot that happens to us, a lot of the customers that come to us come from a point of trust and word of mouth and referral. And we know that whenever we have, a good reference, a really good sell, the people that are around the people who bought that horse, if they are likely to come buy a horse in Europe, they could most probably come to us because they think, oh, that customer was really satisfied. There's been a really good, engagement between the company and the customer. The service has been great. Everything's been organized. So I think that a lot that has to do with why would people buy from us would be related to trust. So the thing that you got to think about for your own business and your own sales process is, how can I implement more trust in the process as a whole? How can I make this really, really good for the customer, and how can I go that extra mile to make sure that this person feels fully secure buying from us? Looking at transactions, looking at money spending, whether this person is spending $1, 1,000 euros, 100 euros, or 100,000 euros, the process of sale is similar in the sense that you have to convince them. So obviously, if tomorrow I'm going to go buy a baguette for €1 from the bakery, if that baguette tastes like shit, I am not going to buy it. Pardon my French. However, if this baguette's amazing, I'm perhaps willing to put $1.50 to eat it, or €1.50 to eat it, because it's really good. It's really good. And I trust the process. I know that they're not gonna put anything weird in their recipe. Like, I love everything about it. That's just this journey of doing this, right? Of going through this trust process, even if it's for €1. And me going to this bakery every single day will make my, my monthly value or my lifetime value. Imagine I go to this bakery 3,000 times, and 3,000 times I spend €1. My lifetime value as a customer will be like 3,000 euros, and this person might generate like 20 cents profit from every single baguette that I buy from them, which is not a lot. So this would be the revenue that they would generate from me and the profit they would generate from me. In the case of a bigger transaction, yes, the sales process is much smaller and the decision making is probably much longer and there's so many more factors to it, but the money that they're spending is much bigger. So let's consider the case of a horse that we would sell for 300,000 euros. In equestrian sports, or in the case of bridle, we would take 10% commission on a sale. So we're not necessarily needing 100 customers every day to buy from us. We would need one customer that would buy one horse for 300,000, and from this we'll generate 30,000 euros, which is fair, which is fairly good. But that sales process might take from a week if it's super fast, up to 5 months to find the right horse for that client. It's very hard. It's very hard. That's why it's very important to maintain contact and engagement of your customer. And sometimes it takes so much more effort for one customer than it does for another one. So it's very important for you as an entrepreneur to really understand what your sales process looks like, how engaged you have to keep your customers, how hooked they have to be to your product and service, and how you can support them in the decision making process and in their journey as a buyer. Every single service product is very different. So it's very, very important to have that very much studied, to keep very, very strong notes of everything, and to really push hard to understand everything. Now, talking quickly about going the extra mile. Sometimes, without giving too much of a clear example, when you're at the beginning of your business, especially like I am right now, we launched beginning of this year, it's very important to go the extra mile if you want to make business happen. Be better than everybody else. Think about how you can be better than competition. Be absolutely outstanding in every single part of your business. So it's very hard, obviously, to be outstanding in every single part of your business, but it's about being consistent. It's about pushing hard every single day, and it's about really, really, really showcasing the best self, your best self, if possible. So I would highly recommend for you to go through every single thing that I mentioned, the customer profile to really know who you must be talking to, the buying journey, understanding your customer and how this customer will be, going towards a purchase process, building trust, that's just super important, and obviously managing your sales process. I manage my sales process through different tools. At the moment, I'm using Start Infinity a lot, which I can recommend. It's pretty much like a fancy version of an Excel sheet or a cheaper version of Airtable. I love the free, but I prefer Start Infinity because it's pretty good, and I think that is very, very, very affordable for a startup. And I build my CRM around that, and it works very well for me. So make sure that you really, really stay on top of your customers, that you really keep track of everything, perhaps create some automations, set some reminders, really stay on top of your deals, and go out there, close them. It's super important because sales is the base of revenue generation, and it's the life source of any business. Good luck. Take care of yourself. See you soon. Ciao.